Hi, I'm Travis Ferber. I'm a partner at Zero G Capital. This is Sasha Stern. He's the CEO of Zero G. We're joined by Nick Greenhalgh from Colorado Inno. Nick is a reporter. He came to us from Boston, or was a local reporter there, and has been in Colorado for a year. Just celebrated the 1-year anniversary yesterday, I believe, of Colorado Inno. And so we're excited to have you here and looking forward to our conversation. So,
awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Why don't we start off? Tell us about Colorado Inno. What's it about? What are you trying to accomplish here?
Absolutely, and I'll give you the tagline first, and then I'll give you what we actually are. But so we're a digital media company focused on startups and innovation across the state. We launched here, like you said, a year ago, and have been sort of heads down since then, telling stories. So we write stories for our website. We have our daily newsletter called The Beat, which is sort of your 5 or 10 minute rundown of everything in tech and startups. And then we also do events. So we've been really focused on the entire innovation ecosystem here, not just in Denver, not just in Boulder, up in Fort Collins, down in Colorado Springs, and out in the mountains as well.
Yeah. Where do you see, so you are a startup,
right?
Like in this world.
Right.
What's it been like for you essentially running Colorado Inno here in the state?
No, and you hit the nail on the head. A lot of times when I explain to people what we're doing and who we are, I sort of describe it almost as we're a startup covering startups. You know, I may say we throughout this conversation, but we here locally is me.
We.
Right. Official title is staff writer, although that takes on many hats. You know, that's everything from putting the newsletter together and writing the stories to grabbing coffee with someone, discussing what we're working on and how we can work together better in the future. So I think similar to a startup, you know, when it's early days and there's 1 or 2 employees, you know, we wear a lot of our hats. We wear a lot of hats here, and it's sort of been interesting, building our audience and our product essentially, much like a startup would. We've been sort of introducing ourselves to people over this past year, finding our niche where we fit in, and really settling into that.
What's been the biggest challenge for you?
Finding time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as a one-man operation, you know, the newsletter has to come out in the morning. No matter what's going on that day at 1:30, you should be getting that newsletter in your inbox.
It's daily.
Daily. It's 5 days a week.
Okay, and is that newsletter how you differentiate from the other media outlets?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is our touch point. We're in your inbox 5 days a week. You're always connected with us. Whether or not you read the newsletter, you'll always get that email from Colorado Inno that gives you the 5 or 10 minute update on everything in tech and startup from that day.
Is it a paid newsletter?
Nope, free. Everything we do is free. So we're, part of the American City Business Journal's family. So I work out of the Denver Business Journal office here. They're great resources for us, but we don't have a paywall. You know, everything we do is free to read, and above all else, we just want to be a resource for the community, providing information for anyone who seeks it.
Presumably, you'll eventually have a paywall, though, right?
Well, so I don't know. You know, when it comes to high-level decisions,
I like free. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Are you complaining?
No, I'm going to sign up right after this.
Those are decisions made above my head, truthfully, but we're happy to just continue on the model we've been going. Being this free resource for startup and tech news.
Yeah. Where so you said that you've looked in the mountains and you've looked down in Colorado Springs and Fort Collins. So a lot of the focus of the tech scene in Colorado is in Denver and Boulder, but there is other things going on in the state.
Mm-hmm. There's places other than Denver, Boulder.
I hear.
Yeah, I haven't been to them, but I've heard there.
You want to hear? What have you seen that's gotten you excited about places outside of Denver Boulder corridor?
Yeah, there was a story I did maybe 4 or 5 months ago at this point about a company down in Colorado Springs, and I was just chatting with them about how things have changed for them over, I think they had been around for maybe 10 or 15 years at this point. So they're a little past startup stage, but still growing. And they said, when we launched 10 years ago, when we were reaching out to prospective employees, what we told them is, oh, we're just outside of Denver. Because there was a stigma about Colorado Springs that, not everyone wanted to move there, not everyone wanted to work there. He said now one of our main recruiting pitches is we're not in Denver. We're in Colorado Springs.
Really?
It's cheaper. You're not far from Denver if you want to go up there. And the ecosystem as a whole is growing. And I think that is indicative of a lot of the places, outside of this Denver Boulder corridor. You don't have to start your company in Denver to be successful. You don't have to have an office in a co-working space in Denver to grow and hire. You can find talent that will come to you where you are if the idea is good enough. And that's been really interesting to follow. And sort of one of our goals for year 2 and 3 as we go forward. As we've been getting our footing here, we've been sort of figuring out what it's like in Denver and Boulder. But we want to make sure that we're focusing more on what else is going on across the state. So we will do more going forward in those other pockets of the state that we haven't covered quite as much as Denver and Boulder. We'll have more of a physical presence there. I'll be taking trips out to meet with the leaders in those respective places.
Do you guys see an impact from QOZ? I'm sorry, I'm going into finance, like the opportunity zones. Do you see that actually spurring people to start a business in those markets?
Yeah, I think we have. So, for example, I know in Grand Junction, we've got a pretty loyal follower base there that's keeping us apprised of what's going on there. And it's so interesting to me, not, coming from Boston, my knowledge of geography here was limited. I knew where Denver was. I figured out that Boulder wasn't far from it. But if you were to ask me 8, 12, 16 months ago where Grand Junction is, I would have never been able to find it on that.
I have a loose idea.
Right, it's like down there, over there.
Only Denver Boulder here.
Right, but we're, whether it's opportunity zones or, just big partners in some of these outer communities, we're hearing a lot more from the companies that are being built there, whether it's expansion or funding rounds or hiring, anything really. We're getting so much more information there than, maybe 10 months ago. And that, part of that could just be the word of us is getting around a little further, but it's interesting. I think the startup ecosystem is expanding outside of just your traditional Denver Boulder.
Cool.
Yeah. So you've got like this expanding ecosystem that's happening, and you talked a little bit about like funding outside of that. So obviously we're venture capitalists and technologists, and so we are acutely aware of funding that we're providing.
Right.
But is there capital in Grand Junction?
Yeah, but like where?
Yeah. So one of the questions I ask a lot of the companies that have built and grown here is, is there enough capital in Colorado to sustain your business going forward?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Typically the answer is no, but it's not a hard no. It's a no but. I think a lot of the founders I talk to would say, no, we need to look outside of the state if we want to have the funding to grow to where we need to be. But there's a lot more funding locally than there was 5 years ago. And even I went to a panel at Denver Startup Week last week with a few VCs from the Bay Area and one from Columbus, Ohio. And it was focused specifically on outside VCs taking an interest in Colorado. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting from one of the VCs on the panel was that he said what's going on here now reminds him a lot of what was going on in San Francisco in the 90s. This real momentum growing among the startup community that's driving interest from outside the state. And ideally, hopefully that'll drive interest inside the state as well.
Mm-hmm. Who do you see as the biggest providers of capital within the state?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I know I see a lot of names, so I don't know exactly who provides the most capital. But I think I would like to see, on more of these funding rounds that the 5 investors listed that, 3 or 4 are from Colorado, not just one tacked on the end.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's an issue, because there are VCs here,
right?
Do you think it's an issue that the founders that you're talking to who are saying hey, there's not enough capital here? Do you think it's an issue that they're just not aware of the funding that's available that's here, or that maybe we aren't aware of them?
Right. That
there's just a lack of communication there?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'm sure they're aware of it. I wonder if maybe they're just looking outside earlier rather than looking at what's going on in the state.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see if that changes going forward.
Yeah.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit and learn more about what brought you to journalism.
Right.
What keeps you excited about putting out content in the space?
Yeah, so I went to Loyola Chicago, got my degree in, wait for it, print journalism, which was like a really forward-thinking move on my part, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, I always...
Did they have a master's in like VCR technology?
Betamax.
It was like you declare your major and the dean was like, are you sure? We also do TV and radio. No, but I always loved writing. Truthfully, that's my favorite type of storytelling. And after that, going into local news was really interesting and sort of guides me to where I am now. In local news, I was writing about everything. Similar to at where we are at Colorado Inno, I was a one-man staff at a lot of the papers I was at. So it could be a meeting on a Tuesday night about a conservation area that an apartment complex was proposed on, or the bakery opening up on the corner. I was always fascinated by this just ever-changing story list for myself.
Yeah.
And loved it, absolutely loved it. It's hard though, newspapers are sort of going away, and
How do you struggle finding enough content for a daily newsletter?
here, really not.
No, it's easy. It just comes at you.
Right. So when we first launched, it was a lot of reaching out to people and sort of getting on their radars and sort of trolling press releases and trolling other news sources as well.
Yeah.
Now a year in, we have so much coming into us.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things going on. And, our newsletter is not all, this company raised $50 million. It could be this company hired an executive. These people are moving into new HQ. This company just launched a new product.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on across the state. I think one of the things that was under consideration here when our company decided to open Colorado Inno was, if you look at some of our other markets, we're in Chicago, but we're Chicago Inno. We're not Illinois Inno.
Mm-hmm.
We're in Austin and Dallas now, but neither of those are Texas Inno. We're in Atlanta, but we're not Georgia Inno.
Mhm.
I think one of the considerations here was we could be Denver Inno, but there's a lot going on in Boulder. There's a lot going on in Colorado Springs, and there's a lot going on in Fort Collins in the mountains and on and on. And why pigeonhole ourselves just to covering Denver Tech?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you feel like you have when you're reporting on this stuff and you're talking to these founders and these folks who are at the cutting edge of innovation, what do you see as the common theme from a challenges perspective of getting these companies up and running?
I think, and this sort of makes me think of an interesting story. It's really trusting yourself and your idea, and sort of riding the waves as it goes. So, for a story we wrote recently, Zestful raised $5 million, maybe a month ago at this point. And I was sitting down with their founder, Matt, just talking about their whole journey. And that's a company that a year and a half ago, and he's talked on panels about this and spoken to me about it, was sort of, maybe even 2 years ago now at this point, was exploring maybe shutting down. They weren't getting the traction they wanted. They weren't getting the support they were looking for. And we're going down the avenue of looking how much would it cost for me to just shut this business down and move forward? What he ends up finding out is that it's more expensive than he realized and can't afford to shut down his business, so is forced to forge on. A couple years later, now they've raised $5 million and are hurtling towards even larger growth and expansion. But just this almost thick-headed approach to my idea is great, my idea is going to work, and I'm going to put everything I have into it. Even if at times it gets difficult and it seems like it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not easy to do this stuff. You've got to be, I think, somewhat, what's the word for it? Ignorantly optimistic.
Right.
I think about your own business.
Right.
Try and drive this stuff forward.
Right.
So you've been here for a year. what is it that keeps you here? Like, do you want to stay in Colorado? Do you feel like this is a place where innovation will be here forever and you'll be
Tell us about
print
the
journalism?
experience of a new Denverite.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. Really happy with the decision to move here a year ago. Absolutely have loved every bit of it. And truthfully, like, my friends or family will ask me, like, oh, what do you love about Denver? And the city's great. Love going out in the city and doing all the things that there is to explore here. But, you know, like a lot of people, I think I live for the weekends, to get out to the mountains, to get out hiking and biking and skiing and camping. So in that sense, on the lifestyle sense, really happy with the decision, and the job has been great too. It's been really exciting to sort of take something on as my own and you know, build it over this past year, see the audience grow, see the, you know, event attendees grow, and just our supporters in the community that are sort of there for us when we need help and you know, willing to push and connect us with the people we need to. So I'm not leaving yet, and I'm not leaving my job yet either. If my bosses are watching this,
They're definitely watching. We have a huge audience, global. Well, thanks for coming. We're glad you're here in Denver. We hope you're here for a long time to come, and we want to do whatever we can to support the people that are supporting the innovators. Right. So we're super happy to have you. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Cool. That's it.
Cheers. Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys.